Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to day two of the 2024 BC Open Snooker Championship, live from Top 147 Snooker and Billiards Lounge, located in Richmond, British Columbia, Canada. We're going to conclude the round robin stage today and have the first round of the knockout phase. So it's going to be an exciting game. Lots of results will be happening. David Burney's in the booth alongside David Putty. Good morning, David.
Good morning. It's what's it like out on the West Coast? It's pouring rain here, so we're hiding in my basement watching good snooker. I can't get a better day than that.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a little overcast. It's not the funnest day to be outside, so it's a good day to be indoors. We've got an exciting match here. Albert Lamb going against Dave Daly. A lot riding on the line here. If Daly is able to dispatch of Lamb, he'll win the group. If Albert's to take it, there could be an interesting three-way tie, which will have a blue off the spot playoff that hopefully will be televised a little bit later. And the man in charge of the table is Johnny Policeman, Gary Spence.
Well, there's a statement of intent on his opening shot. He hasn't got a favorable roll at all. I think he's snookered on that ball, but it was a very nice shot from long distance range.
Yeah, both players are wearing the all black. Neither of them are Kiwis, but Dave's at the table with the beard, and Albert is the clean-shaven gentleman.
Nice recovery there. Well, we got to see Albert on the stream yesterday, I guess. So this is second time on. He didn't seem phased by being the streamed player yesterday. He played well.
Sure, and this is Albert's home room, so he knows a lot about these tables. But unfortunately, last night Ross Bratson was able to defeat him, so we'll see if Dave can do the business here and punch his card into the knockout round.
He may have got a nice rub off the black on that one. Give him a couple of options. Pink may go. So he's looking at the blue. So I think, Dave, you were saying that Dave Daly has done well in these tournaments in the past.
He's done all right. He always criticizes me that he's put him in the group of death, but as we can see, he's got a record of 2-0. So he does a lot playing down at the Ox Billiards Club in Seattle. So they've got top-notch
Mm-hmm.
tables there. So Dave is familiar. He's not familiar too much with the Rassons, but both these players got to play on the table. So
Yep. That would be a nice spot to be for a right-handed player. A bit of a stretch for Albert as he's a lefty. those are confounding misses for a player when you know that you should make that shot, a fairly straight in green. Usually it's body movement or inaccurate cue motion that will cause that. I think he's found cover for that red over the hole.
Yeah, they're always a little nervy, these first matches. A few cobwebs you got to shake off. Wake
Yeah.
up the old back arm. Yeah, I'd have to say neither of these players are of the grinding type. I think they're definitely going to be going for their shots a little bit more than maybe
Ooh,
you've seen.
that shot there is kind of a statement shot of where Albert's thinking. Brown in the side would have been the shot to play for position. He played it in the corner with a safety lead in mind, knowing that he wouldn't be hooked and that shot would still be on, but kind of challenging his opponent to take that shot on. So
And no fear Daly just potted that red into the pocket with authority. Interesting, Dave, with a thick beard there and using an ash cue. I wonder if he has troubles. Sometimes those fibers of the ash can get caught on the hair, and our good friend Sam Tonyan has told me that beard oil is the secret. Will make that cue go through the cleft and the beard like a hot knife through butter.
also makes a difference if you have a two-piece cue or a three-quarter cue or a one-piece. Two-piece cues would be bad for that.
True, and I think Rory McLeod actually was the only player that I know of that got penalized for his beard hitting a ball on the table or rubbing against it, shall we say.
Yes, he had quite a long beard, or maybe still does. I haven't seen him playing for a while. He may have fallen off the tour, but yes, he had quite a long beard. Well, Albert has a chance to get in here and do some damage. This is the second match that I've had a chance to watch Albert play. And what I see is that he has a bit of movement, especially when he goes to hit the ball at pace. He he has body movement, which then compromises the accuracy of the shot. When he hits the ball with more control, a little slower, that body movement doesn't seem to be there. He missed a few straight in blacks yesterday that were caused by that.
I think, yeah, as we were talking yesterday, it's so important to get the youth into it, and that's where they can really develop the good habits. As when you get older, you develop bad habits, and it's tough to shake those bad habits in your old age.
Yeah, it's nice if you can get coaching young people, especially as the game. If you look around pool halls now and the snooker rooms, they tend to be older and slightly overweight and gray, are most of the people who are playing. And it would be nice to have a whole crew of young people coming in at this point. Ooh, I think he just missed that one.
Yep, referee Spence is called a foul and a miss, and in this tournament, it is 4 attempts, 3 putbacks. And as well, if a player needs more than 3 snookers to win, it is a concession. And that goes at any time. Some tournaments have just the colors. But always important when you get into these tournaments, read the rules. Sometimes most of the rules are quite uniform, but there are a few that are just a little different.
So that three hook rule or three snooker rule, even if there's like three reds left on the table, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay.
It's kind of started because I remember a few years ago there was a tournament, and I don't want to name the player, but they were on the brown, just those 4 color balls left, and
Yeah.
he needed, I think, about 5 or 6 snookers and was still playing on. And myself in the booth, I was dumbfounded. A lot of people that were chiming in on the stream chatting, like, why isn't he conceding? And I guess some of our new players, they just don't know that etiquette, that there is a potential that sometimes you should just concede if it's just so far. You don't have to put all the balls down for a match or a frame to finish. I'm almost toying with the idea, David. I don't know how you feel about this. Maybe get my Van Halen hat on and in the tournament rules say no black socks are allowed, just to see if they're reading.
Just to see. That's right. Have them all show up. They'll probably be boring. You'd have to bring extra socks from your private collection.
Oh,
Otherwise, it'd be disqualifications. Now, there's a nice lead.
unintended, as we saw a raise of the hand by Dave Daly.
Everyone gets really concerned when someone flukes a ball in the pocket. But quite often, there's a nice
Oh,
return though. There quite often that kind of kiss or a leave of a shot is as critical or as important as getting, fluking a red or fluking one of the color balls because it can turn the tide of the table pretty quickly. Again, lots of head and shoulder movement on that shot that would cause inaccuracy in delivering the cue.
It's interesting. Some people that talk to me about refereeing and how do you what's a good piece of advice for refereeing? I'm like, you know what a good thing is? Just watch matches. Watch how the referees conduct themselves, and I think that could be the same with players. Go watch the pros and just they don't move at all. It's only the back swinging arm that is the movement.
Yeah. And it all comes down to how solid the stance is, how much clearance there is on the cueing arm hip. What I see with Dave Daly is that he stays very still. He stays down long after he struck the shot. Just technically, he's probably a slightly stronger player.
Yes, if we said Dave, originally from the Emerald Island of Ireland, now takes up residence in the Emerald City of Seattle, and had a long absence from the game of snooker as he played back in Ireland and then moved to the States for work. Obviously, America didn't have many snooker tables at the time, but then somehow he found about this guy named Mike Dominguez who was opening this club called Bays, and Dave has been in the back in the game ever since.
So not much in the score at this point. It's pretty much a tie game.
True. Speaking of Kiwis, it almost looks like a rugby score.
Albert just coming up short on his intention of being behind the yellow. Dave has figured out the speed of the table pretty well, pretty quickly. Would you have played a match on this yesterday, Dave? On this table?
Dave Daly did not. No, this is our featured TV table. Uh,
Yeah.
he was over at Star, I believe, for his first match. Yeah, he didn't feel too far away from home at the Star tables, as Mike Dominguez and crew down at Ox Billiards have 4 great Star tables. Yeah, it's a different atmosphere at Star. They only have the 3 tables, as I said yesterday. It's kind of set up like an academy almost. It's where you go to work and put the business in and the time to honing your craft. Where this is kind of an open room. You might run into some old friends. Maybe someone's looking for a game here and there. But it's great to see that more and more rooms are opening up.
I actually found a room I didn't know about in Toronto that has 9 tables in it. And it's only open from 4 o'clock in the afternoon till about 1 o'clock in the morning. And very close to a club called Monte Carlo. But in all my years of being in Toronto and Southern Ontario, playing this game, I had never known about this club.
Hmm.
And one of the people that I was teaching at one point said, "Oh, can we meet at this club for a lesson?" It's like, where the heck's that? And I went in, and they've got a full kitchen. They have about 10 or 15 pool tables and 9 Westbury tables.
Yes, good morning, Doug Wilson. Timing is very important, and staying still, and keeping the eye on the ball. Accurate points. And Mr. King, thanks for the strong words. He's enjoying the broadcast. Mr. King sometimes has helped me out, come and just film some B-roll of these great events. He's a whiz behind the camera, takes great photos. and a good mate. He's always got my back. So thanks for tuning in, Mr. King.
Hmm.
So black's out of the equation, but there's still, if someone can get in, they can really make a profitable break. But only time will tell to see if that can happen.
Just as we were talking about it, let's kind of watch Dave here and see how still he stays and the pace that he plays at. Now he didn't make the shot, but he stayed down almost till the red ball was at the pocket on that one. He also has a more definite pre-shot routine. So step one, step two, step three, and he does it practically on every shot.
Dave is a member of the Snooker Gym, a great program run by our friend Nick Barrow. So I think you can kind of tell exactly. I think I remember when I came back east to do the 2022 PAPSA event. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
I got in, you actually had a pool night that you were doing. So I hung around, had some dinner, and I was watching your stroke. And I'm like, that looks like someone's been taught by Nick Barrow. It's just interesting how you can tell.
Yes, yeah. It that I kind of think of it like a McDonald's franchise. You go and have a hamburger in Tennessee or Vancouver or wherever, they're always the same. And if you develop a stroke, a series of things that you do each and every time you strike the ball, then not only are you more likely to make the ball every time, but you're much more certain of knowing what it is you did wrong if you missed.
Yeah, and if anybody out there has any comments or questions, let us know on the chat. It's always lively and active on these broadcasts. Do tell us where you're tuning in from. Snooker's a global sport, so we have fans all over the planet Earth. And there's no silly questions. We get new players, experienced players, great debates. As back down at that qualifier in San Jose a couple weeks ago, there was some strong debate as Sargon Isaac, that is, who was in the final, a player that originally comes from England, knows the game in and out. Obviously, was away from the game and now getting back into it, finding it a bit frustrating because he knew he was really good as a junior player.
Hmm.
But there was debate about excessive white ball cleaning. So it was interesting to hear everyone's opinion as everyone was chiming in.
Well, that's where a lot of the conversation about chalk comes in. I have a full size snooker table in my basement at home. And when I was using standard chalk, I would have to vacuum, brush, and iron my cloth. And since I started using the Tome chalk, I haven't had to vacuum my table at all. And that would have been over a year ago. It's the quality of the chalk that you use will determine a lot of number of times the ball needs to be cleaned. Because the other thing is the chalk gets left on the cue ball and can cause any number of not miscues, but kicks and things. And when you're watching a live match, you can hear the kick when it happens. There's a nice shot.
Yeah, interesting about table maintenance. Obviously, some mechanics kind of use that spray adhesive, whereas a really good mechanic doesn't need that adhesive to keep the cloth to the table. And I've heard just be aware what the mechanic used if they do use spray adhesive, because the vacuuming can sometimes pull out that adhesive and create little dust pebbles underneath the cloth.
I don't think Dave will be putting Albert back on that one.
Yeah, unless he's Stevie Wonder, that's he's going to come to the table. But I know there's obviously a lot of snooker fans out there that are watching, and a good source, not to pat our fellow Dave, but there are a lot of Daves in the game. But Dave Hendon does the Snooker Scene podcast, and at one point I just wanted to debunk all the myths and asked him on his podcast, what are the tips for keeping a table in tip-top shape? And ironically enough, he got Dave Gilbert to time in, and Dave was pretty much saying, yeah, pretty much if you brush it every day, that's a good practice. Maybe not vacuuming it as much, and ironing it here and there. So
Brushing it is the big one. Making sure you get under the rails and things like that. But yeah, it's been
and there's
nice
some.
having a table in my basement. I can, especially it was here through COVID, so I never really lost too much playing time other than getting tired of playing myself all the time.
Well, that worked out nice for Albert.
Yep. Not how we played it, but nice result.
Yeah, here on Snooker Captain's YouTube page, where you're finding the action here, I believe there are some additional videos up there. The Art of Snooker, a great series that they produced. Maybe going on 7 years ago. It was definitely a pre-COVID event. But our good friend Jim Jacks, referee,
Yep.
right? He's out your way. He provided
Yes.
some great information about keeping your table in tip-top shape. Do you see Jim much, David, out there in Ontario?
No, Jim, he's doing some refereeing from time to time, but he's not playing much now. And he was always a great ambassador for the sport, but he hasn't been. I don't believe he's playing much and refereeing on a very occasional basis when needed. But a very very high quality referee for sure. And Dave, I don't know if you know of a little fun thing that Christina, my wife, and I did called "Till Snooker Do Us Part."
Hmm.
And Christina had never played snooker before in her life, hardly ever had a pool cue in her hand. And we did a 5 series, just short video. The sound quality isn't all that good. It was our first attempt we ever did to do something like that. But you can find it on YouTube under "Till Snooker Do Us Part." It's just a fun little playful thing that we did in my snooker room. Referees being worked on this one.
Yeah, Gary Spence has been around the game for a long time, so he's a good man to have at the table right now. It's definitely warranted.
So Albert's racking up a few points on this one. There you go. Oh, off the yellow and in? No.
I think so far in this tournament, the high break so far has been handled by Rex Hugh, has a break of 59. Our
Yeah,
good friends at Puff Pipes have sponsored the high break, giving us a bag of treats, as well as Street Hawker, a great food eatery place in Vancouver, has donated or gifted us some gift cards for that high break prize.
nice.
And Bernie's best is on the table. The first player to make a century is going to go home with a cool $100, which pays for 1 hour of rent in Vancouver.
On your house or the table?
Either one. I think that is the tough part, obviously, with real estate. I think just everywhere going up, these tables do require a lot of space, and just space is at a
Yeah.
premium these days. So I'd be surprised if you start seeing this game of snooker kind of being a bit more popular in rural areas and not the big metropolises, as
Mm,
much as there's more people, but the space is. Oh, David, you work in real estate, so you know exactly
yeah.
what is happening.
It, it really is the space that it takes to to house a pool hall, snooker hall is outrageous. You need basically uh, 18 by 24, so 400, about 450 square feet for a single table. Now you can set them side by side, and maybe it's 400 square feet for a number of tables, but that's a lot of space, and you need to generate good revenue from each one of them. That's one of the reasons pool has been more popular because you can get a lot more tables in. And they don't charge anything less for a pool table than they do for a snooker table. The other challenge with that, and David, you mentioned, that there's a place that was more like an academy than a pool hall or a snooker hall, is that for training purposes, to have a place that isn't dependent on the bar makes it more accessible for training purposes. Whereas if you've got the music going loud on a Friday night and you're trying to concentrate on your game, it gets pretty tough. But then to have that academy, you need some well-heeled sponsors that are going to absorb the cost or not be driven by profit, which is unfair to expect someone to invest a lot of money and not be able to make a dollar from it. So there are a few challenges. That's where corporate sponsorship will come in eventually.
Because yes, there are a few players that do gripe about how much it costs per hour, but you got to put it in perspective sometimes. How much are you paying for a round of golf? Or how much are you paying for a lift ticket and all your gear there? You know, if you want to go snowboarding, buying the snowboard, the boots, the pants, the jacket, the gloves, the hat. Sure, it's a one-off purchase, but it's getting up within the thousands of dollars where you
Hmm.
can get a pretty decent cue and case and all the extensions for a couple hundred at most. Obviously, cues can range. There's some that are quite expensive.
Yeah, it's not hard to spend $400 or $500 on a medium to maybe medium plus snooker cue with case and extensions. It amazes me what people spend on pool cues. Been putting some um, time and attention on pool cues, and it's how decorative the butt is. Quite often determines the value, and then with graphites and high quality composites for the shafts and things like that. But Mucci and Predator and a number of others all have very high end cues that are sometimes selling for into $4,000 or $5,000 for a cue. Then you spend $500 on a jump cue, and you spend it's then you need a break cue. Whereas in snooker, it's generally one cue fits all, so it's a little less expensive. But
And then you have Stephen Hendry that bought a cue for £40 and won 7 world championships with it.
yep,
Ooh, that's a little unfortunate for Albert there. I think that red is that's a thin cut there for Dave.
I think pretty makeable from there. But just it's hard to tell from here. But I do remember once I had my cues stolen from my car, and I was playing in a tournament a couple of days later. So I went to the pool hall where I played quite a bit, and talked the owner into selling me one of his cues off the rack, one of his house cues. And I ended up going out and winning the next tournament that I played in. And I think I sold it back to him for $50 later when I got a good cue again. But
It's
quite
always
often,
so.
I think we overthink the hardware, the equipment that we use versus having really good technique. Along the lines of if you use the same cue for a couple of months and get used to what it does, that might be the cue that you should use for a very long period of time.
Yeah, it just becomes an extension of your arm. It just,
Yeah.
you know, the kind of intricacies of it. Uh, I find that personally, I have my cue at home and I played with it for many years, and say it wasn't with me and grabbing a house cue, you just feel completely different. It's a bizarre feeling.
In my collection, I've got some Woods cues. I've got an Aurora. I have a John Paris. I have a couple of other high-end cues that I have on my rack, and from time to time, I'll just play with a different cue for a while. Currently, I'm playing with a one-piece Mac cue, which is a handmade cue from England, and I've never played with a one-piece cue before, so I thought I'd try it out. There aren't many players that do play with one-piece cues. Charlie Brown is one of them, um, but they're harder to carry around. They don't fit into cars the same way, and they're more difficult to manipulate in your life.
And how are you finding the one piece?
I love it. It hits so solidly. But I think,
So
as I said before, my competitive days and high end snooker may be fading a little bit. So I experiment as opposed to worry about worry. It's funny. doing commentary when, of course, they can't hear you. You don't talk when they're shooting, right? Yeah. But I play around with it and see where I want to go. But, well, we basically have a tie game almost. So at this point,
Fortunate for Dave, Albert doesn't have the natural angle to go up table for the brown after this green into the middle.
doesn't have to move it much though, because if he leaves it just over by the pink a little bit, he'll have a good angle. Maybe even too far. So both of them at this point need the pink, I believe. So Albert needs the pink and Dave needs them all. This game comes down to choices. It was an interesting shot that Albert took there because even if he made it, he had a long, low percentage shot on the pink for the frame. Because the blue ball didn't give him enough to win the frame. Might have been more thoughtful to have played the safety.
Ooh, Dave wants to have that shot back. I think that blue has just come out, and the potting
He
angle is
hit it
there for
about
Albert.
1 foot too far.
It's looking good for Albert to take the first frame, an important one for him and this match. Needs to win to keep his chances alive of hoisting the trophy tomorrow night.
He has pretty free reign to just pot this because the black is safe. And there's that movement again. Pops up on those shots. He's going to continue to miss some pretty important balls.
Yeah, this is a chance that I don't think
Oh,
Dave thought was going to happen.
wow.
First frame of the day, all the way down to the black ball. How about that for excitement, ladies and gentlemen?
Three in the side. Nope.
Always difficult going from one end to the table to the other end, these long pots.
At least it's not perfectly straight, which helps a bit. Good leave. You're going to miss. Good shot. That shot is almost better than playing that full length, trying to get the black down to the bottom rail. You've got a big side rail there to leave it safe on. Sometimes when we're playing, I'll get in games with or sessions with friends, and we'll just do black ball safety frames.
Hmm, that's an interesting
So we'll play
sparring exercise.
we'll play a race to 10 of a double black. Like if you were tied at the end of a frame, we'll do a race to 10 because this is something that nobody really practices.
Fortunate with that double kiss.
Black ball to the middle of the top rail and cue ball in the middle of the table. Not quite.
Pressure continues to build with that shot, that black stain on the table.
That's a tempter, that one. Would you go for that in this situation, Dave?
Ooh. Oh, good shot there by Albert. Who was it?
Yeah,
Who would I
yeah.
be? I don't know if I was in Dave's shoes, quite possibly with a 2-0 standings, and then Albert needed it. Uh, it's dicey. You never know until you're down on the table on the shot.
Yeah.
But Albert able to hold off Dave Daly to take this first frame, and we'll just step aside and be back with frame two action. As there's our friends at Top 147 doing a great job to help this tournament be a wonderful success, as well our other club, Star Snooker. They've got 3 tables making this tournament work with the vast number of players. Biocan Diagnostics supporting the great game of snooker and all the great work that they do. AAA Photography really helps get the word out with programs and posters of the great snooker action. And White's LES Services, they've got some beautiful chairs in the room for all our spectators to sit in and enjoy the action. And Snooker Canada is the organization that is putting on this great event. We might be having the president chime in, Patrick Geegee, at some point during the broadcast, maybe today or tomorrow, maybe just for a quick frame. But hey, get your questions ready, everybody. The president could be on air. I will write them down and we can ask him what's coming down the pipe in the world of snooker in Canada. And Dave Daly set to get frame two started with the breakoff. It's David Burney in the booth with David Putty.
Nice to be here, and we'll see if Dave can get back onto equal footing here.
Yeah, a lot of twists and turns can still happen. Obviously, if Dave is to win this match, game set match, he's moving into the knockout round. If he is to lose, he would be tied with Albert, and then he's going to be a fan of Ross Bradson because Ross Bradson needs to win his match to force these three gentlemen, the two at the table here, and Ross with 2-1 records, and that will be forcing a blue off the spot, high tension playoff battle to see who gets in the knockout round.
That would
So
be
a lot
fun to
of
watch.
oh, they're thrilling. Last year we had one, and it took a little bit to get going, but once everyone saw what was happening, the oohs, the ahs, the gasps, the cheers, it was electric.
So do you do that like I don't know if you remember the blue ball challenge a few years ago, where blue's on the spot and you shoot the ball from the D, cue ball from the D?
That is correct. Yep, that's what happens. No
Yeah.
flukes are allowed. Obviously, if you're lining up the blue and you're taking it in, say, the top left corner pocket, that's the pocket it has to go into.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no flukes allowed. So if it rattled in that pocket and then shot over to the opposite top corner pocket, that's still considered a fluke. And even if you miss it so bad that you go 8 cushions and get it into that corner pocket, that's still kind of a fluke. So
Still counts. I remember during COVID, we did a blue ball fundraiser for Sunnybrook Hospital many years, well, a couple of years ago, I guess. And we had people from around the world sending videos of 10 shots. You had 10 shots to make as many blue balls like that as you could. And yeah, that was fun to do. It was challenging. In practice, I got 7. When I videoed it, was I think about ooh, this is we'll get it. Yeah. In practice, I had 7, I think it was, and then when I videoed it, I had about 2 or 3. I think John White from the corner bank had the most when we did it. He got 6 or 7 on film.
yeah, sometimes we really appreciate the viewership, but sometimes some of our friends in the chat room can be a little tough on some of these players. But it's one thing playing in just a match with your buddy or a friend, but when you get into a tournament situation, there's something that just changes, as you've just alluded to there, David. That you had the blue ball challenge in practice, you're banging in 7, no problem. Then when it comes to actually do it for real, you only had 2, so that little extra pressure seeps in there somehow. Just hit the cushion before the pocket, so stayed out. It's taken that pocket out of play. So tough game with 6 pockets. Now it's even tougher with 5, but with that black where it is, that's going to be a guaranteed 8 points for the next player to make a
For
red.
the next red, yeah, yeah.
Always those are a little scary. Could go in off the bunch and go into the top left corner, but Dave Daly did good work of that, getting his cue ball safely into the bulk area and making it really tough for Albert for a pathway back into the bulk area.
There's one just to the right of the pack. A bit of left-hand siding. Should get down to the left blue ball if he hits it well. Not enough siding. But he has thrown up a cover ball in front of the left pocket. Both of them really want to be the one to get the next red, so
definitely because that black is close to the top right corner pocket, but just looking at how some of these reds are spaced out in the middle of the table, that black goes on its spot. Well, it might be not going into either corner, so maybe it won't be as profitable as I thought on first glance.
Depends on the position from this red. Oh, okay. That's one Albert would like back. One of the things as a player that you can do if you really want to know how your game is to do videos of your practice sessions. Because you may think that you're staying still or that your cue is running through straight or that you're generating good follow through, all of those things. But until you see yourself on video, it's very revealing. And that's the other thing with practice is people think that they're practicing when they come into a pool room and get into a match with someone. And in fact, that's not effective practice time. Practice time is coming and doing specific drills for half an hour, and then playing someone.
And always a good thing, because isn't it correct that the camera adds 10 points? Or
I
is that
think so,
pounds?
yes. Well, in my case, maybe both, but that practice time of focused practice time is really important. Not
It's
just
true.
hitting scramble drills by throwing the reds up on the table.
True. Chatting a little bit with Dave, he was looking back at a match that he was on the TV table a few years ago, and he was just shaking his head. He couldn't believe his shot choices that he was taking on. He just couldn't believe it.
Yep. And you don't see it clearly when you're involved in the match.
Hmm.
That clarity comes from doing an analysis after.
Yeah, it looked like Albert was a little bit more steadier than usual on that last shot.
What? And he came much closer to making the ball.
Yeah, Dave Daly with that prolonged head down, pretty much waiting for the jingle of the ball to rattle on the mesh of the pocket before he pops up.
Well, that's actually the mantra that when I am working with people, it's you stay down till you hear the ball hit the bottom of the pocket. When it hits the bottom of the pocket, you get to stand up.
That's what I feel about doubles. Keep your eyes forward and straight and listen for that pocket to go in so people don't quick to turn their head, too soon and force a lot of head movement.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the
So even a
gentleman.
choice like that, if he had followed that cue ball through, he would have had pink into the right corner. It's left himself a more difficult shot. I think he was trying to get there for the black, but that's a nice recovery.
Hmm.
The
Coming on a
idea
look.
being to keep it as simple as you can. Don't complicate it by having to move the cue ball more than you need to.
the early stages of frame two. Dave Daly has a 17-0 lead over Albert Lamb, but Albert leads the match 1-0.
Up pretty quickly on that one too.
Yeah, Dave, not one of our taller players, so has to use the rest a little bit more than Sean Talbin or Ross Bradson. Interesting, a few broadcasts ago, I had a good Gary Spence in the booth, who's going to actually be coming into the booth for the next match. But he was playing once, and Bill Werbernick, great Bill, Big Bill, was noticing that, Gary, you are horrible with the rest. Here's what we're going to do. You and I are going to play a frame, and we're going to just use the rest for the whole frame. And now Gary's pretty good with that piece of equipment.
I remember hearing stories of Cliff Thorburn when he was crisscrossing the country, playing in every pool hall he could get a game in. And some of the games he would play only with the rest. I heard once of him playing on a table kind of in the middle of the room, and the only way he could shoot was if he shot with the long rest. Everything had to be done with the long rest. He probably won that match solidly, but
I do remember
again,
reading.
we talk about practicing, and rest practice is incredibly important. You need to be confident with it in a match.
Do remember reading Mordecai Richler's great book on snooker, and there's a fun little anecdote in there when Cliff was, as you say, running up and down North America, playing wherever he can get a match, playing the money matches. And he happened the way he was in Texas in some city. Can't remember the actual city in the Lone Star State. But he's playing and, kind of hustling this one guy. And the gentleman's like, so do you live around here? He's like, oh yeah, I just live down the way, Cliff says. Oh, what do you do? He's like, oh, I work at this gas station on 3rd and Maple. Really? I don't think you do. No, Cliff was quite insistent that he played at the gas station. And then the gentleman finally piped up, said, well, you know what? I own that gas station, so I don't think you work there.
Oops.
True. Yeah, it's funny. Cliff did a lot of things to do the hustle. I think he grew out his hair, so he had a ponytail. I think he even once shaved his signature mustache.
No.
If you can believe it. I think if Tom Selleck can do it, why can't Cliff Thorburn?
Yep.
Stone Boy, the prize for the champion is $1,000. Canadian, that is. And there is going to be a little special added feature to that. Unfortunately, I cannot announce it right now, but there's going to be some extra goodies to the champion this year. Pretty much, I think all these players, if they come back tomorrow, they're going to be walking away with some kind of funds, as we'll be paying the finalist, the semifinalist, the finalist, the runner-up, the 2 semifinalists, and the 4 quarterfinalists.
Yep. And you're saying it's $1,000 to the winner?
Correct.
Yeah.
And we're really trying to create an atmosphere out here in the lower mainland of everyone gets the wealth. We have, you know, commentators, we have scorekeepers, we have referees, tournament directors. Everyone should get a piece of the pie and stuff like that. As
Hmm.
much as obviously there would be no game without the players, but what we're doing here, David, and the great camera work that Lance has done with his streaming, that just helps us get the word out there. And you know what that does? It attracts sponsors so they can see where their brand is going to be and how many, fans it reaches, or they can do the metrics as we've talked about before.
Hmm.
Stone Boy, we have 52 players in total in this event. Now, four of those players played and got qualifying spots. So I ran four qualifiers in the autumn and into winter here in the lower mainland, and the winners of each event got a spot in the knockout round. And then 48 players paid their entry into the event, and they're in 12 groups of four with only the winner moving on. Obviously, some players are coming and maybe griping, but I've never heard a player not to gripe. Well, there's a few actually that are just come and do the business, but griping that it's only one that leaves the round robin to get into the knockout phase. And kind of in tort, I said, there's 52 players. There's only going to be one winner. So,
And I guess the other way to do it is to do groups of six or something like that, and two people come out of that. But again, some people won't be happy with that either. So
should we poll the players? I mean, and say, do you watch the pro ranks? Do you like watching professional snooker? Do you think we should have it like professional snooker? If they're in agreements, then I guess it's single elimination. That might get a little bit of a gruff.
well, especially for people that are traveling distance. I mean, you've got people from Seattle, you've got people from Calgary. If you run a tournament where it's a single elimination and they get beaten in the first round, that's a lot of expense for not much time on the table.
True, I think obviously with if it was to go single elimination, single elimination, the frames would be a little bit longer, or matches would be longer, more frames making them up.
Yeah, you'd get a best of five going or something like that.
Yeah, even could maybe extend to seven. Who knows? It's all about gauging the time and working with the room owners. We want to work together because obviously they're not making a lot of money on these
No.
tournaments. They might get a few shackles here and there. They're definitely getting exposure. People are going to be aware of the BC Open and be like, hey, that was held at Top 147 and the Star Snooker Club. I should go check out that club.
Yeah.
And also the lead up to the tournament, these players are going to come in and practice and practice and practice. So, as I say, working with the owners, you don't want to make them upset because they do a good service. They do have a business and we have to respect that.
Albert is a different player when he's in the balls and he's not trying to hit the balls hard. Much more stability in his stance and
Well, he's got a good sparring partner, 2022 BC Open champion Max Guan. And Stoneboy, thank you, tuning in all the way from China. Great to see that the Women's World Championship is going on over there. Wish all those women the best of luck. They're always a great group. Have lots of fun hanging out with them in Seattle at the U.S. Open. Diana Schuler and Matt Hewitt do a wonderful job, as well Mandy Fisher. It's good promotion, and there's a story that Rhiann Evans passed along when she was getting an interview, and it kind of makes your back tingle a little bit when a little girl was watching Rhiann play and turned to her mama and said, "Oh, I didn't know girls could play this. I thought they just refereed."
That was a nice shot on Albert's part. He held the pink spot so he didn't, said he would have good shape. Now this one he's going to hit at pace, so watch how much he moves, if he moves. And he moved and missed the ball. Whereas pretty much every other ball in that run, he had control of the speed. And as soon as he went to hitting the ball harder, he missed.
Well, that's great to hear, Stone Boy. When his city in China, they usually get around 150 players, and they would give upwards of $3,000 to $4,000 for the champion. One question for you, Stone Boy: how's the support behind the scenes? As obviously having 150 players, you're going to need a lot of people working and making the tournament go. So just curious about that, because I think, David, we're not wrong where we struggle a little bit sometimes with having people behind the scenes as much as on the table.
Mm-hmm. The other question on support on that would be what's the, now is he in a community where they have had snooker in schools and that kind of thing? Because that's so critical. How many of those are young people and how many of those are older players that have played forever? But kind of the demographics of that 150 people would be really nice to know.
Well, 25 in it to the good for Albert, but 43 on the table. Dave's going to have to travel a lot with these red balls if he wants to get back into it.
Strikes me that Albert's a pretty good front runner. He's desperately trying not to leave Dave anything. If Dave is to win this, he's going to have to work pretty hard to do it.
Yeah, these two guys might mosey on over to Star after this, because that's where Ross Bradson will be taking on Rico Liu. That's the final match of that, and that's going to have a lot of importance. Do we have a three-way tie, or is Dave Daly going to go home? Because if he loses this match, and Ross Bradson is to lose, then in the rules of the tournament, the head-to-head is the first tiebreaker.
That was a heck of a shot, that safety out of nowhere. He was in a tight spot. With that grouping of 5 balls down at the bulk end of the table, there's a huge wall for possible snookers.
Oh, Dave's put another brick in that wall. It's making it even
Yeah,
more dangerous up there.
lots of left-hand siding on this ball. It's like a Pink Floyd album, Dave, isn't it? Another brick in the wall.
We don't need no education. That's true. Roger Waters and David Gilmour.
Ooh,
Actually, Dave was just down in Las Vegas watching his fellow countryman U2 at this famed Sphere
oh, the sphere,
concert
yes.
thing. And as I said to Dave, oh, that little band? I think Brian Eno produced their Joshua Tree. And if anyone knows me, they know I know a little bit about Brian Eno. And actually, Daniel Lanois was helped out produce that album for you too with Brian. And
Okay.
Daniel's quite a avid pool player. Has a recording studio in Toronto. Good friends with Pat McCarthy. That tournament that we did at Corner Bank, the PAPSA event, I think I was just one day late. As when I got in that morning we arrived, Charlie was like, "Oh yeah, I went with Pat to this guy
That's
Daniel
right.
Lanois' studio." I almost fell over as I'm a huge fan of Daniel and was tickled pink and probably floating from the rafters at Shooterville back in 2017 when we did the Richler Cup there, as
Hmm.
Daniel was in audience and I got to chat to him a little bit about him and Brian's work on Apollo Atmospheres and Soundtracks, which is a great album. I think a lot of people should look into that.
That last shot was a missed opportunity for Dave. He had a chance to really lay a significant snooker. Now he is 26 points down. 25 if the scores. I think that Albert reviewed this recording after, he would be shaking his head a bit.
I think it'd be a good learning point for Albert, as you've mentioned. Just when he hits it with pace, he gets kind of twitchy, and he's kind of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde when he's in the balls.
Mm-hmm. Because he plays very well when it's soft and controlled.
Hmm.
But he loses the focus, the rhythm, the pre-shot routine.
Yeah. Let the cue do the work. Don't need your body to do the work.
Wow, that's a heck of a snooker. If he's, I don't know if he's snookered or not. Oh, he's right at it.
Well, it's a tall order, but it would be quite a steal if Dave's able to do it.
Wouldn't it just? 20 points, it's all there. He can avoid the double kiss on the brown. He has a great chance here for another snooker. What that one? Probably afraid of the double kiss, which would have left the ball makeable.
Yeah, I don't think the Irish are too fond of the French. This brown to put us into the snooker's required stage.
This would come with pretty much automatic blue shape anyway. So yeah, nice shot.
True. Little twitchy going through, but able to make it work. Alex Lamb. Twitchy like Alex Higgins.
And the concession will be next.
Yeah, looking at each other, handshakes there. So Albert Lamb takes that frame 53 to 24 and takes this match by 2 frames to nothing. It's going to be an exciting match over there at Star. If Ross Bratson is able to win it, we could have a three-way tie in this group. So stand by, everybody. We'll be returning at 12 p.m. for our next match. David Putty, great to have you here. You're going to step away for a bit because we're going to get Gary Spenson, but we'll have you a little later in the afternoon. Any final thoughts on that match?
No, it's everybody. Both players were playing pretty defensively and trying to control the table, taking advantage of opportunity. Was a little maybe they would have liked to replay some of those shots, but Albert got in and made a good run that stood up to control the second frame. So he did very well, and I suspect he'll continue to do so. So I will talk with you again in a couple of hours and keep having fun.
Sounds
All
great.
right.
Thank you, David,
Thanks,
for all
Dave.
your great. No problem. Thank you for all your great insight. We do appreciate it. But stand by, everybody. Coming up at 12 p.m. Pacific time, we'll be having an exciting match. CCU going against John Shoring. Both those players are ahead in their group, 2 matches to nothing. So the winner of that is going to move on to the knockout round. Tune in for that. Should be a great one in about half an hour time. Take care, everybody.